My name is Douglas Lawson, City Council District 5. This beautiful city, the best city to live, work, and play. We are here doing interviews with some of the community leaders. We're interviewing the pillars of the community and our trailblazers. We're letting our residents, our shareholders know who have paved the way and who are currently leading in this great community. Today we're here with the great State Senator Bobby Powell. He is a native son of the city of Rivera Beach. He serves in State Senate District 30, and he's here to speak to me just about his history, his experience, and his direction of how he's continued to lead by example. He's actually one of my mentors, and I appreciate him taking the time to interview us. State Senator, thank you so much for being here. We're going to just go ahead and jump right into our interview. Senator Powell, if you could just tell us and introduce yourself and let us know, what does Black History Month mean to you?
Thank you, Councilman Lawson. One of the things I can tell you is that I'm excited and overjoyed to be invited here by you today to share a little bit. What I can tell you as a person who was born and raised in Riviera Beach, I have followed the trails that have been left by so many who came before me. And Black history, to me, Black History Month in general, the idea was founded by Carter G. Woodson, and he founded first initially Black History Week, and then eventually morphed into the idea of Black History Month. With that being said, I can sum it up into the quote or the comment by Dr. John Henrik Clarke. Dr. John Henrik Clarke that said, "History is a clock that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography." It tells them who they are, it tells them what they are, but most importantly, history tells the people who they still must be and where they still must go. And that's just a summation of exactly what history is. And I know that quote maybe doctored just a little bit because it's that compass of human geography.
Yes, sir.
Right? You're finding out where you are. You cannot be what you cannot see. And a lot of us do not know that, the shoe lasting machine was built by Jan E. Mack Ziegler. So the shoes that you wear, somebody who looked like you was able to found that. The traffic light by Garrett Morgan. Dr. Charles Drew, when we talk about blood and the ability to really complete and make surgeries happen. All these things that you really don't contemplate or think about were founded by people who look like us.
Absolutely. 100% agree, and that's just kind of how I look and focus on the direction of life, because people don't realize the ones that look like us have paved the way, have led the path for us, and are those trailblazers. And that's why I'm so excited to be with you today. You literally speak about being the native son of Rivera Beach. You're very proud of this city. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Okay, well, a little bit about my childhood. A lot of people don't think about this, but see, I come from a two-parent household, and my mother, up until she got sick, she worked for Pantry Pride, which is a grocery store. Right now it's where Lockheed Martin is actually at, on Broadway here, not too far from where we are now. And then my father always did construction, or he worked for the cable industry. And growing up, in my mind, I was either going to work at a grocery store or work outside doing construction. And my mother and father would always say, listen, we don't want you to work hard like we've done. Right? Beautiful. My dad would say, I don't want you to do this back-breaking work that I've done. Yep. I'd be in the backyard digging holes with a hard hat because I knew what kid doesn't want to be like his dad, right? And because I saw both of them, that was my idea. At some point, my mother, around in the early 90s, got sick. She ended up on dialysis, and what we don't talk about, or the part you don't hear about in the story, is making sure that every day my mom she went to dialysis twice a week. She would spend 4 hours on what they call a dialysis machine. She'd come home very weak. She would throw up in a bucket and then would cook for me and my siblings who lived in the house, right? And the energy that it took, we don't think about how hard, how difficult it was. She eventually ended up in a wheelchair. And I can distinctly remember me being in high school, and because she was dedicated to her children, right, she would go to every track meet that I had, every football game, and if my dad was not taking her, she would drive herself. She would walk to the car on a walker and literally would take her leg, lift it with one arm, put it on the gas, lift her leg, put it on the brake. And one day my dad said, do that again? I didn't know he was riding with her. He goes, what, did you do that again? And she took her leg and put it on the brake. And he said, that's it.
That's it.
You're not driving anymore.
That's it.
So at 16 or 17, I became my mother's permanent driver.
Yes.
And because she was dedicated to going to all my track meets and my football games that were close, my dad had to be now dedicated to making sure that he made those events.
Wow.
Because it's just how dedicated she was. So I grew up in the city of Revere Beach, 2-parent household, but yet still there were some, there was some struggle in that environment.
Now, I understand why you're such a trailblazer, because your parents led by example, and growing up in that 2-family household, they were your trailblazers. And the fact that they fought so hard just to make sure that you had an easier life, a little easier than they did anyway. That's phenomenal. That's a blessing. It just shows that they obviously were amazing people, and they are amazing people because they raised an amazing son. So thank you so much. Right now, Senator, COVID-19. It's literally devastated communities. How has it changed the political landscape in Tallahassee, and what effects do you see long-term it having?
Long-term, Councilman Lawson, there's several things that have to happen. Recently, and I say recently, over the last year, we had an election here in the state of Florida, and what we saw was that there was no real repercussion for some of the things that happened related to COVID-19.
Correct.
I believe that the rollout of the testing was slow and not organized, and that's directly related to leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm not in control of the Senate or the governorship or state leadership, and there was no repercussion from that. There was no repercussion from the unemployment debacle. 58% of the people who have applied for unemployment have yet to this day to receive a single payment. There was a very poor rollout, and it's being adjusted to the vaccine.
Yes, sir.
This pandemic has caused people to have great consternation, worry, and fear related to where they're going to stay. Will they be able to make rent? Will they be able to send their kids to school? Because a lot of kids are not in school, and parents can't go to work if their child is at home. We've seen there's been an influx of parents who have become stay-at-home parents. I'm not going to say mom or dad, but stay-at-home parents.
Right.
Because somebody's got to stay with the children while they try to learn. And it's also been adjustment because people have had to learn how to teach their children. Mm-hmm. So you now have become a teacher. Yeah. And part of that is you're finding out that because we've shifted to a more digital society, that opportunities are available for people to now work from home.
Yep. Opportunities
are available for people to be creative, right? When you're forced to think outside of the box, you have to do so, and you'll start doing so. You're forced to act. What I've realized is that you may have noticed this, a lot of the most creative people that you'll ever meet are sitting behind some bars, and you never realize how creative they were until they got behind bars and they started sending you pictures, and you're, who drew this? You did this?
Right.
They start creating things and coming up with ideas. When you're forced to have to be creative, you can accomplish anything.
I think just that time of isolation and just being within yourself and within your own mind allows for your mind to really be creative, to develop, and to work itself. And you're not distracted by the media, you're not distracted by your cell phones, you're not distracted by all the outside factors that can influence that great mind that we have between our ears, and it allows for you to be more creative. And it gives us an opportunity, and I think that's what happened during this isolation. Because when we put all these families and locked them in their households, so many people were able to grow, so many people were able to transition, so many people were able to pivot out of a means of just being focused on one thing, as opposed to everything that they can accomplish. And I've seen so many success stories during COVID, even with all the horror stories and with the devastation that we've had over this years. There's a lot of still love, passion, and drive from people. So, Senator Powell, one of the things that since we are talking about the COVID, I wanted to thank you. There was recent reports and studies that the African American minority community has been devastated and affected in a way that's higher than any other race. I want to thank you for the work that you did, because there were reports that vaccinations were only touching about 3% of our population, African-American population, and you made a special call to make sure the least and left out were vaccinated right here in our city, right here in the city of Revere Beach. We've been able to vaccinate over 1,500 people since you started to speak out about it, so I want to thank you for that. And tell us a little bit about how you were able to accomplish that, because we had a testing site that ran beautifully by our city staff, and you were there at the forefront making sure that we got those vaccinations here.
I want to thank you for that as well. The team from the city of Riviera Beach, the city manager, Chief Kurt, the whole staff, Parks and Rec, everybody who was involved with that operation made sure that it happened. And by doing so, making it happen smoothly,
Yes.
We were able to get the state to come back again and say, Riviera Beach worked really, really well. That should be our model, one of our models, right? Yes. So in doing so, we were successful in asking again. And that was also a partnership with churches. You know, we originally partnered with Greater Bethel, Mount Zion, Calvary, Missionary Baptistry, and the pastors. Many times pastors get territorial about their membership, about the parishioners, commingling with other pastors. But in this instance, we realized that the greater good would be people being vaccinated, people being safe, was more important than worrying about, is somebody going to steal my member, right? Mm. And also what you've seen, people are concerned with how quickly the vaccine rolled out. You've had competitors in the medical field actually working together, pharmaceuticals working together to get vaccines out, because it's been that important, it's been that major. And what this has shown us is that leadership, elected officials, pastors, churches, anybody who is concerned about the benefits of the whole as opposed to the individual can really make a change and make some things happen for not just our community, but for our whole county, for our whole state.
Absolutely. And based upon that statement, working together, the electeds, you've worked very closely with Commissioner Mac Bernard. Tell us about your relationship and the importance of black leaders and mentors in this community.
Let me tell you something about Mac Bernard, and I'll tell you something. This is you know, candid conversation. Of course. I worked for Mac Bernard. Mac Bernard, when I was a legislative aide, I was doing a lot of stuff in the community. So you'll have people that today will say things like, "Well, I don't see Bobby Powell at this meeting or that meeting." Well, I'm one person. I represent more than 500,000 people. Yep. So I'm hitting a lot of ground at the same time. Plus I got 3 staff, so we're working. My team is all over the place. But in that essence, it's easy to sit back and critique. But I'll tell you this, and I'll tell anybody this when listening. If you look at who's criticizing, and then look at their body of work, and then compare it to the person who they're criticizing, you'll often see that the body of work of the person who's laying the critique is very lackluster. So as an elected official, I'll tell you, and I always say, you know, why respond to somebody who doesn't have a body of work, right? So working together as elected officials, as leaders, helps us to build a whole community. And it also comes into individualism as well, because you have to make people feel special. We don't care how much you know until we know how much you care. Yes, and an incident that sticks out to me from Mac Bernard, I was working in his office back in, we're talking, I was an aide, so we're talking over 8 years ago. Wow. Before I was elected. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we named First Street after Miss Inez Mickens. And Miss Mickens is my cousin's grandmother, or my cousin-in-law's grandmother. So I called her, like she said, I knew you was my grandson, so she called her grandson. Mm-hmm. But I remember she had a birthday. Mac Bernard, Tallahassee is 6 hours away. Mac Bernard came to work in Tallahassee. He went to a committee meeting that he had to attend because he's responsible for his work. Went to his committee meeting, left the committee meeting, drove 6 hours to Palm Beach County to a birthday party for Miss Mickens. He had to be there by 3. Went to the party, gave her flowers, gave her a card, gave her a kiss, turned around, and at 4:30 was back on the road to travel back to Tallahassee because he needed to be there the next day. Now, if you don't have a public servant that will do that, and if you've never seen somebody who's done that, and you're not the person that will do that kind of stuff, then, you know, in my book, it is what it is, but you don't stand on the same podium as Mac Bernard, because this is what leadership is. And Mac will never take credit for doing something like that, because that's not who he is.
That's not who he is.
I've seen him. I hear what people say, but I also see what they do. I hear you, but I also see you. And a lot of people say things, but then you see what they do, and it's a lot different from what they're talking about.
I've had some candid conversations with Commissioner Bernard, and his story is phenomenal. And I'm actually going to hopefully have him as one of our individuals that we're going to interview as well, to discuss some of the direction he's done and things that he's accomplished throughout his career, and also just what he plans on doing moving forward, because he has been one of those pillars and trailblazers, and I see that he's actually had a strong influence on you as well. To that point, do you feel responsible to bring up that next generation of black politicians?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not just black politicians. It's about black leadership.
Black leadership,
yes. You look at my track record and the people who've come into my office, and it's not only black people, right? Because although I am black and I fight for black and I want us to be successful, my hand is just as strong for anybody who wants to learn from me. Maya Angelou said, when you learn, you know what you do? Teach. She kind of said, when you learn, teach, right?
With that twang
when
that
you learn, teach.
There it is.
You know, the grass is always greener on the other side, but the water bill is much higher, right? So with that saying, take a look at the body of work. For Mac Bernard, I was his legislative aide. He's the only person that I know of, and you're never going to see this reported, nobody talks about it, but both of his legislative aides got elected. Myself and Al Jaquette were both state representatives following what he did as a state representative, and he became a county commissioner, right? Nobody else has ever done that. And you're not hearing that reported, and that covers a lot of ground. Nobody white, nobody black, nobody that I know of has done that. But you also look at my body of work, the people who've come through my office. You take Ms. Clarice Redding, who's a leader in her own right with Beat Nova. You've got Javante Edmonds, who's come through my office, a leader doing things with Suits for Seniors.
Yeah.
Ben Durgan, who came through my office, who works for the Economic Council. You've got Trodrick McCoy, who's a city councilman here in Riviera Beach, who started with me. We don't talk about how hard Trodrick and I worked. Before we were even set to start in the office, we were working, we had got ourselves situated, and we actually set up shop in his Uncle Willie Bo's house, Willie Bo Davis, right off of 28th Street. We both had our computers and cell phones working because we needed to get started, right?
Yes, sir.
You cannot forsake the time. People can say what they want, but hard work and dedication to a process and a project pays off. And both of us are right here from the city of Riviera Beach. We knew each other growing up, right? So to see where we are now, to see from which we came, yes, life has been no crystal stair, but with that, we've been able to still walk up the steps.
That's one thing that I learned from that group, organization, that farm of men. Continuity in government, succession planning, leadership is essential and vital for our continued success and growth. And I learned that from you. I learned that from the group of men that you run with, because I've seen all of them as successful black men in our community. You can always have differences of opinions, you can agree to disagree, you cannot see eye to eye on certain things. But at the end of the day, you all have the same goal of betterment of our community. And that's what's something that I want to continue to do. That's what I'm working with my legislative aide and doing the same things that you've done and Senator and Commissioner Mack did. So I thank you for that as well.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And let me add this. Please. We cannot leave out our women. The first person to embrace me when it came to the world of politics here was somebody here in the city of Riviera Beach. We often fail to give credit to Lynn Lorraine Hubbard. Lynn Hubbard was the first person to say, young man, come sit with me. I want to talk to you about politics. I want to talk to you about our city council.
Beautiful.
She was not afraid, right, of a 27-year-old, 27-year-old RTS athlete who had become, involved in the community. And I say RTS because, at the time, 27, I was ripped to shreds.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
I was jacked. But Lynn Hubbard at the time was somebody who sat with me and started to bring me to different events.
Yes.
If it were not for a Lynn Hubbard, then I would not have had the opportunity to feel confident and comfortable around a Mac Bernard and the ability to run for office. So it took everybody.
That's a story. That is a story that people may not know, because Lynn is one of our previous electeds that served this city with honor, that fought for rights in this community, and just shows that the work that she was doing, even behind closed doors, to help lead one of our current electeds, our state senator. So thank you, Ms. Hubbard, for what you did, laying that foundation for Senator Powell. And with that point, I wanted to actually touch on it. You jumped ahead, but some of the mentors and individuals who you looked up to when you were growing up and how they influenced you. And I see Lynn Hubbard was one of them. But anyone else that you can think of that really influenced you?
Of course, always first my mom and my father. You know, that's the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning, and the relationship building starts there. With any child, your first idol is your parents.
Yes, sir.
And then I had my older sisters who I really adored, and family members, because those are the first things that I saw. But when going out into the community, I looked for people who were doing things that I thought that I could do. And growing up in the city of Riviera Beach, I had a lot of neighbors, people who were successful who would talk to me. I had an uncle by the name of George Grace who worked for Pratt & Whitney, and he seemed to know everybody. Edith C. Bush, who was my aunt, was the founder of the Martin Luther King Coordinating Committee, the executive director of that. So I saw those people when I was growing up. But I will tell you, I never saw myself in this realm or being a leader until I got to Florida A&M University, where at that point the world opened up to me, right? That was the way that I saw black people in leadership positions. I saw black people becoming lawyers, black people becoming doctors, black people running circles around people in government and business, right? Dr. Sybil Mobley was the dean of the School of Business, and they were killing it. When I say they were killing it, she could have wrote a book if she wanted to called Killing the Game, because everybody who came out of SBI was dynamite. When J.J. Evans say dynamite, they were doing it. And I studied journalism and public relations, and you know, my mentality was, you know, I would go and work in the FAMU, which is our school newspaper, till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning before we went to press. And I take that same type of attitude to, if I have to turn around and wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning and stay up to 2 o'clock, then that's what has to happen for the job to get done. You don't leave when it's 5 o'clock or when the clock you're supposed to clock out. You leave when the job is done.
The job is done.
And a lot of people don't carry that attitude and mentality, but my mentors, the people who I've seen who've come before me, your Ann Weed Kimbrough, who was former chief of staff of DeKalb County and then became a dean at FAMU, instilled that into me, right? A lot of times you'll see me, and a lot of people who know me, I may go to an event and I see a table full of people who I'm familiar with and who I know very well. And I may skip that table and go sit with the people I don't know. And it's not because I'm acting funny, right? Oh, he acting funny, he ain't gonna sit with us today. Right. It's because that's common. I already know you. We're going to be familiar with each other. Growth doesn't happen in familiar places. You have to step outside of your comfort zone to grow. And I've done that in different places. One place I sat with a group of people and found out that I'm sitting with one of my cousins, and we created a new relationship that we never had. So I learned that from Kimbrough. Be uncomfortable. Guess what? When you're uncomfortable, other people are going to be uncomfortable too. Yes. But that's how growth happens.
Senator Powell, you've had so many great accomplishments, and a lot of people don't know them because you don't showcase them. You don't advertise them. You don't put them on a pedestal like you should, because literally the things that you do in this community, we need to honor them. Can you tell us a little bit about the accomplishments that you've had, the successes you've had, because this is your spotlight. This is where I'm honoring you as a pillar. So I want you to let our residents know, what have you accomplished over your career, as a state senator, and in the House, since you've been a young man? You know, I just want to hear a little bit more about you and your accomplishments so that we can honor you.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson. What I can tell you is that the greatest accomplishment that I could ever have is to see the people who've been around me to become successful, right? People who have connected with me to grow, to see, Mac Bernard will tell you when me and Al Jaquette were elected, how he felt. Right. And I felt similar seeing my former colleague, Trotter McCoy, get elected. The growth of seeing other people, seeing Kashamba Miller Anderson grow from We were together in the trenches at the West Side Civic Association.
Right.
Seeing her grow into leadership positions. Joe Anderson, seeing you grow into your leadership role. That's what really, those are my biggest accomplishments in being able to give back, right? Because you can't put a value on that. It's infinite. I've gotten awards, so many different accomplishments. Some of the things that stick out to me have been being able to use my voice. You know, life and death abide in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
And whenever you can speak in front of a group of people, you can speak life into people. I've had the ability or the honor of doing a commencement speech for Palm Beach State College in front of 3,000 or 4,000 students.
Yes.
I've had the honor of doing convocation, the first virtual convocation for Florida A&M University, where thousands of people saw that. So you couldn't see them in the room, but thousands of people got to understand that we are going to be all right, but we gonna be all right, right? And I continue to get awards almost, every other month or every month for something that I've done, but it's generally not just me, right? It's the people who came before me, it's the people who work with me. I take no joy or no honor in individualism, right? Every award that has been bestowed upon me with my name on it was because there's a team of people who you don't see that are working behind the scenes, my staff, my wife, that are making things happen. In my office, they're always doing research, they're answering the calls, they're making the things happen, and I get to take the credit,
yes.
But it's those people behind me. So when I get an opportunity to see them arise,
yes.
To invest in them, my investment in people, that is the greatest accomplishment that I've ever gotten.
That is phenomenal. And that just shows how big your heart really is, because you truly care about people. You truly care about investing into people and the longevity of our culture, of our race, of just mankind, and knowing that their successes will continue to lead our community forward. So people don't understand how much sacrifice you've made just to allow for others to grow. So Senator Powell, this has been amazing. I just want to kind of close in seeing what's next for State Senator Bobby Powell, Jr.
I'll let you know this. Steve Jobs, in one of his speeches, said the greatest invention is death. And death requires a constant renewing, right? And when I tell you, that means that we are all at some point going to leave this earth. And nothing is here for us to hold on to by ourselves. So we have to give freely and give openly. Love hard, love your family. Repair relationships. What I can leave here with today is to tell people, as you move forward, continue to grow, continue to learn, be the best that you can be well spoken, be well dressed, be well read, be well prepared, and be well traveled. Reading books is the single most important act you can do. Earl Graves once said in one of his Black Enterprise magazines, he's the founder of Black Enterprise, who we lost last year. Yes. Earl Graves said, reading books is an invaluable act of continual learning and personal growth, of expanding the capacity to recognize opportunity, of developing the robust imagination necessary for innovation. He goes on to say that a self-education and an eye for opportunity is quite frankly the universal formula for lasting success and wealth.
State Senator, thank you. I really want us to pay homage and give our flowers to our leaders while they're here. We're no longer just going to kind of give eulogies and celebrate our leaders after the fact. I'm going to continue to pay homage to this gentleman because he paved the way. He is a true trailblazer, and he is a community pillar. And I want to thank State Senator Bobby Powell Jr. for taking the time to actually speak with myself and our thousands of residents that are going to be watching. So everyone, please, this is what we're trying to do. I want you to understand, as a community, we're going to lead by example, and I want you to take this time to rethink government and be the change that you want to be. Thank you. Meeting with Senator Bobby Powell was amazing. A little quick story recap I want to tell is I traveled to Tallahassee and I was at a gala that was hosted by the Black Democratic Caucus. And that gala, Senator Powell, I told him, hey, I'm interested in running for city council. Senator Powell, he immediately checked me and said, well, what you doing for the community? What have you done? Are you working? Are you committed? Are you on any committees? Like, what are you doing? And it was kind of, it was eye-opening for me, and it was kind of like punch in my chest to say, hold on, young man. You trying to just jump in there. Are you helping your current commissioner? Are you giving feedback? That kind of motivation is why he's one of the trailblazers, and I appreciate Senator Powell because you motivated me to kind of do a little bit more, to work a little bit harder, and to stay committed to the people and the residents of Rivera Beach. So Senator Powell, I'm giving you your flowers while you're here as a trailblazer and a pillar of our community. Thank you, Senator Powell.